It was 18 years ago in June as Georgia heat blanketed the Inman family as they packed their car for a family getaway in the mountains of North Georgia. It was the Friday before Father's Day when Billy and Kathy Inman, the parents of their son Dustin and their family dog, set off to go on a fishing trip for the weekend. As they headed north, making their way along the wooded, hilly highways that make up that part of my home state, they stopped at a traffic town in the little town of Ellijay, Georgia. But as they waited for the light to turn green, the Inman's family's lives were suddenly and tragically changed. Traveling well over the speed limit at 62 miles an hour, a car driven by Gonzalo Harold Gonzalez slammed into the rear of the Inman's vehicle. The tremendous impact knocked Billy and Kathy unconscious. Kathy, Dustin's mom, remained in a coma for 5 weeks. When she finally regained consciousness, she learned that the injuries she sustained in that wreck were so severe she would be wheelchair-bound for the rest of her life. But more tragically, she was told the heartbreaking news that her son, Dustin, was killed by that tremendous impact. Within seconds, their lives were forever changed by the driver who slammed into the rear of their car. And while Kathy would not recover from her injuries, nor would they ever see the smiling face of their dear son again, they could at least ensure justice was served. But soon they would learn that even that would slip through their hands. The car that killed their son Dustin and permanently disabled his mother was driven by Gonzalo Harold Gonzalez, a man who had illegally entered this country. Although illegally in this country, Gonzalez was able to obtain a valid North Carolina driver's license using his Mexican birth certificate and a Mexican matricula consular ID card. When local law enforcement went to the hospital to take Mr. Gonzalez into custody, they found that he had escaped the hospital. As a fugitive from justice, he continued to evade U.S. and local law enforcement and soon reemerged back in the streets in Mexico. Even though the location of Mr. Gonzalez is now known by U.S. and Mexican law enforcement, the family has not been able to get justice for his crime. Under our treaty with Mexico, Mexico does not recognize vehicular homicide as an extraditable offense. The Justice Department has informed the Inman family that there is nothing else they can do. Nothing. After 18 years of grieving the loss of their son and adjusting to a life of permanent disability for Mrs. Inman, Mr. Gonzalez is still evading justice and has yet to pay for his crime. The tragedy could have easily been avoided if Congress had taken the border threat and security seriously years ago. This car wreck would have never happened, and Dustin would likely still be with us today. Because of the severity of their injuries, Billy and Kathy were not even able to attend their own son's funeral. Billy will tell you that, yes, he blames the driver of the car for the death of his son, but his hunting buddy, but he also blames the government for ignoring our open and porous borders and for allowing someone who is here illegally to obtain a driver's license. While there have been many speeches given in this chamber on immigration, we have yet to be able to have a vote or even have a debate on what the majority of Americans are demanding, what the president is committed to, and what we as a legislative body should do, and that's to secure our borders. How many more innocent victims such as Dustin Inman, Kate Steinle, or Sarah Root, and the list goes on, must die before we start taking the safety and security of U.S. citizens seriously and prioritize securing our borders? Not only are our borders a thoroughfare for human trafficking, they are also a distribution channel for cartels who smuggle contraband, dangerous drugs, and weapons that make their way into our communities. They are a portal for dangerous gangs such as MS-13 who bring terror, drugs, and murder to our streets. For too long, we have chosen partisan politics over doing what is reasonable and right, and we put our families' livelihoods at tremendous risk. It's beyond time to take action. It's time for Congress to act. It's time for us to enforce our laws, and it's time to secure our borders, not for our own political victories, but for families such as Billy and Kathy Inman. I yield back.